The start of game day here should be a jovial atmosphere, as all three of us last week went on to get winning records, including Anthony over here, who went a perfect 7-0, the first perfect record of your career here. But it doesn't have that feel, does it?
No, it doesn't. Obviously, the big news is what's going on at Penn State, and pick a word: horrific, tragic, sad, all these things apply. Joe Paterno obviously out, which has created a huge reaction at Penn State. A lot of people have a lot to say about this.
Riots all over the place, all over campus. Last night, it's a huge story everywhere. The student body over there, not happy at all that Joe Pa is gone. He's been there forever. This is going to be a shocking moment for everyone in college football.
Yeah, you know, the past really decade, a lot of people have been wondering, when will Joe Paterno go? Obviously, no one foresaw him going out like this. And I understand everyone's love of Joe Paterno, the coach. He's done a lot of great things for that university. But he made a mistake, and that's putting it mildly. He and a lot of other people should have done more. Some of them obviously are more at fault than others, but this is a serious issue. We're talking about child sexual abuse here, and a lot of people made mistakes, and they've got to pay for those mistakes right now.
Yeah, we won't get into all the details, but there's one thing. Joe Paterno was wrong. Mike McCready was wrong. We won't even get into Jerry Sandusky, who's the most evil out of all of them, obviously. But in this case, I think the board made the right call in getting rid of Joe Paterno right now.
Yeah, you have to make this decision. They did it for the right reasons. You know, we talk about universities a lot of time having no character and being able to stand up to controversy and stand up to adversity. This was the right decision. They made the right decision. They did so diligently, but also speedily, and they made the right call.
So Penn State, stop rioting. Blame those who are to blame. It's not the board. It's those faculty members on that football staff. This is Brad Carroll's Game Day. Number 19, Nebraska goes into number 12, Penn State, in a game that's nothing about the football. This one's even hard to judge. We don't know what Penn State's going to do. Nebraska, clearly, I think, the better team. But it's anybody's guess as how Penn State comes out in this one.
It's so hard to talk football in this game, to even try and talk X's and O's, because it's really about how are these teams going to react. Penn State, you know, normally when controversy hits, your players try to bond together in support of a coach, but I don't even know how that locker room feels about Joe Paterno and what he did, and you know whether they think he did the right thing, whether they're really behind him. In Nebraska, they're trying to prepare for a game, and they got all this going around, and they're answering questions about something they had nothing to do with it. So who's going to be able to focus on this game may be the question as to who's going to win it.
I think if you go by the crowd's reaction on in the riots, you have to think that the team is solidly behind Joe Paterno. You hear everyone talk; they love this guy. Now, it's, do they come out and play for the successor? Do they play for Joe Pa? I don't know. I can't tell you.
I think the only thing the players can do is they can band together and say, we're going to play for each other. You know, we're going to play for us and not worry about what anyone else thinks about this football team, this university, our coaching staff, and try to win for themselves, because they do legitimately have a shot to win the Big Ten, which would be great for them, a team that has sort of steadily moved up the rankings week by week. So we'll see what happens there. The big question I have is, what's the atmosphere going to be like in that stadium? It's going to be bizarre.
I imagine chance against chance against chance. It's going to be insane. Nebraska, like I said, the better team. Who wins?
I don't really have a good reason for this, but for some reason, I feel like Penn State's somehow going to win this game 16-13.
Yeah, Nebraska, they are minus 3.5 in this game. I got them winning it 23-17. All right, finally, we're going to get back to college football. Miami goes into Florida State. This is a key ACC matchup. Both teams having down seasons. Both want to win in this epic rivalry.
Yeah, this is a great rivalry. Obviously, it's lost its luster in terms of national significance. These two teams haven't been, in the national championship race in a while, even though they keep aspiring to get back there. I looked at this, and I thought, this game doesn't really matter. Then I realized the ACC race is wide open. I didn't bother to do the math. I have no idea how they can end up in the championship game. They need a lot of other things to happen, but Florida State still does have a shot, and they have won 4 in a row.
Both teams, needless to say, they need a lot of help to get there, but it's possible, and that's all you can ask for. These two teams hate each other. What happens?
Call me crazy, but I think Miami rallies around the Canes and they win one for old time's sake. Florida State will miss a field goal at the end. 24-23, Canes.
Oh, that's a big pick. Florida State -9 in this game. I got them winning it 31-28. Number 2, Oklahoma State goes into Texas Tech. Oklahoma State, as we all know, controls their own destiny to play for the BCS National Championship. They had a little bit of a scare last week against Kansas State. Texas Tech, as we all remember, knocked off Oklahoma. What happens now?
If I'm Mike Gundy, I'm putting that game and I'm telling my players, see, this team's pretty good. They can beat a really good football team. With that being said, Texas Tech got blasted, lit up by Texas's offense last week. I don't think they're going to have much luck going up against a far superior Oklahoma State offense.
Coming off that victory over Oklahoma, they jump back into the rankings, then crash back down to earth. 2 straight losses, including the one you mentioned. Oklahoma State's got to be loving this matchup with that offense. I don't know how many points they could score.
Yeah, the Cowboys are simply going to score a lot more points than Texas Tech, who will get its fair share of points as well. But the Cowboys won this one 50-30.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's -17 in this game. They win it 45-21. It's not quite number 1 versus number 2, but Saturday night in primetime, the Pac-12 will put forth a game equally as big. Number 7 Oregon goes into number 4 Stanford in a huge game with huge BCS implications. This could be the last true test for Stanford the rest of the season. Get past this, you're looking at an undefeated season. Oregon not ready to let that happen.
No, obviously Oregon wants to get in the way, win this game, and maybe have some sort of outside chance at getting back into the national championship picture as well. Stanford, though, they win this game, you got to think they're sensing.
Anthony went 7-0? Wow. We've talked about HGH use and his magical mullet powers, but maybe it's time to finally give credit where credit is due. And that belongs to the hat Anthony obviously uses to make his picks each week. Really? How else could you explain it? And Brad, whatever Kool-Aid you've been drinking, you better stop now, because you're back in last place. Really, Brad? Last place? So sad. So very sad. On to my picks. Oklahoma State, -17. Nebraska, -3.5. South Carolina, -3.5. Auburn, +13. Boise State, -15. Miami, +9. And my game of the week. Number 7 Oregon visits number 4 Stanford, what could be the only real threat left to spoil the Cardinals' undefeated season. This game has all the makings of a shootout, and it shouldn't disappoint. It will be the big physical size of Stanford against the speed and quickness of Oregon. Both teams are preseason Heisman hopefuls in Andrew Luck and LaMichael James, but it will be the Ducks quarterback Darren Thomas who steals the show and leads Oregon to a 37-31 win.
Interesting point he brought up about Darren Thomas, because obviously everyone talks about Andrew Luck, but Darren Thomas is a pretty good quarterback as well, and this is his chance to steal some of the spotlight and get his team a big win.
He can pass the ball. He can also run the ball, which makes him very, very dangerous. This one's huge. I mean, I can't put it any other way. Stanford has a chance. If someone stumbles, Oklahoma State, very possible they lose to Oklahoma in the coming weeks. They could jump into the BCS title game. Like you said before, Oregon as one-loss team, if you put all the other one-loss teams together, who knows what happens there. This one's a great one.
Yeah, you mentioned Oklahoma State. A lot of people assume they're going to lose to Oklahoma at the end of the season, and they view Stanford as the team to jump up as long as they can continue winning. And who wouldn't like to see Andrew Luck take on an SEC defense like LSU if LSU can keep winning? But this is going to be really interesting. I do agree with Craig. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think you're going to see a lot of points put up on the board.
But does Oregon pull the upset?
You know, I love BCS chaos, and I want to pick Oregon because I love that chaos. I think Stanford's the better team. I think they get the job done at home, 47-40.
Well, guess what? Oregon's +3.5 in this game. They're going to win it, 38-35. Switching over to the SEC, Florida goes into number 13, South Carolina. Interesting to note, Florida's lost 8 straight games dating back to last season against ranked opponents. Guess what? South Carolina's a ranked opponent.
Yeah, sometimes we tend to overanalyze games, but I'm going to keep this one very simple. Any which way you cut it, Florida's not very good. South Carolina, they're okay. You know, they're not able to beat the best teams around when they play them, as we saw with Arkansas last week, but they are much better than Florida.
South Carolina does not have Marcus Lattimore, the star running back. He's injured for the season. Not sure that matters here.
No, I don't think it matters. Florida simply doesn't have the offense, and South Carolina's defense, with the exception of the game against Arkansas, has been playing very well. South Carolina wins 23-17.
Yeah, South Carolina -3.5 in this game. They win it 28-21. Number 20, Auburn goes into number 15, Georgia, in a game that has SEC title implications. If Georgia wins this game and then beats Kentucky, they're playing for the title against most likely LSU. Georgia playing very well this season.
Yeah, Georgia's a long way away from its 0-2 start, and they can smell that spot in the SEC title game where they'd be one upset away from going to a BCS Bowl, and who thought that was possible way back at the beginning of the season? They're having, a really solid year. They really righted the ship here. We'll see if they can keep it going.
They've won 7 straight games. Coach Mark Richt went from the hot seat. Now he's in the penthouse. We may see that later. You got to love Georgia. That's tough for me to say. They're doing it all in the right ways. They're actually winning games. I never thought that would happen. This is a big one, though.
Yeah, Auburn was very impressive at the start of the season. Surprised me. They've come back down to earth a little bit. I think they'll hang around, but Georgia playing too well right now. They win this game 30-20.
Yeah, Georgia's minus 13 in this game. They're going to win it 27-23.
No one ever wants to give Boise State any love because they don't play in a tough conference, because they don't beat enough good teams. Well, guess what? They're coming to the penthouse, and we're going to give them all the love they need. Boise State, all they do is beat football teams. You show up on the field, they play you, they beat you. You give them a chance to play one of those great teams, you never know what could happen.
It would be easy to put everyone involved in the Penn State football controversy in the doghouse this week. I'm not going to do that. What I am going to put there is everyone who says that Alabama should get a rematch against LSU for the BCS National Championship. Guess what? Alabama was a 4.5-point favorite at home. LSU went into their building and won. Why should LSU have to beat Alabama again? It just doesn't make any sense. So, Alabama lovers, get in the doghouse. Finally, a huge matchup Saturday afternoon. TCU goes into number 5 Boise State. This is actually a conference matchup. Guess what? The only conference matchup these two will play. Both are most likely headed out. This one's going to be a great one, though.
Yeah, this was supposed to be the up-and-coming glamour rivalry of the Mountain West Conference when Boise State decided to join, but now that's gone, and the game doesn't really have the magic that it was supposed to have. There was supposed to be maybe 2 undefeated teams trying to crack into that BCS National Championship race. Boise State's the only one that held up its end of the bargain. TCU's great defense has gone away this season.
Yeah, and they're missing Andy Dalton as well, who's got the Cincinnati Bengals in first place in the AFC North. Who would have ever thought that would have happened? Boise State has Kellen Moore. They have national championship hopes, although it's highly unlikely they'll get into the game even if they go undefeated. Still, you got to think they're going to come out with a vengeance in this one.
Yeah, this is TCU's biggest game of the year. This is their chance to make a statement. I think their defense will play better, but with Kellen Moore at the helm, he's putting up phenomenal numbers. This is people's chance to watch him and see him play. No one gets a chance to see Boise. He won't disappoint. He'll have a big game. He'll lead Boise State to the 27-20 victory.
You said Boise State. I heard you. Guess what? They're going to win it. They're minus 15 in this one. 34-24 over TCU. For Anthony Della Calce over here. For the evil one, Craig Carroll. Always a pleasure. Joe Paterno behind the camera. I'm Craig Carroll. We'll see you next week.